Yeah, Sheldon will be back. Had one of the, I think I said at the opening press conferences, it was there's a lot to get done in a short period of time. And so there's a lot of priorities. Obviously, Sheldon was one. We had to go through a process. Really enjoyed it. You know, it was difficult and probably uncomfortable at times, but really excited to and look forward to working with them. And I think probably the next question will be relative to contract status. We'll deal with that at the appropriate time. But Sheldon will continue on in there, and excited for him to do so.
When you're in the middle of talking to players about their futures in the organization and such, how much value is there in having some stability and familiarity at that coaching position? How often do players want to know about that? Yeah,
Ryan, I think they do. I mean, everybody wants to. They have the question. I think Sheldon's got a really good relationship with his players. I think, as I say, they all think he's a good coach. I think there's a real strong bond. What I took away from it, there's lots of belief both ways. You know, there's belief in the players with the coach, and there's belief from the coach and the players. And like I said, it was unique in the sense that Sheldon and I had, in this business, when you've been in it as long as I have, usually you've come across people somewhere. We really haven't. So we needed to have that. We needed to build that connection. And but certainly there was a great deal of respect from both the player side and from coach to player.
What stood out to you about him in that time? You thought he was a good coach from afar, but what stood out in the process? Him as a person and coach.
I think there's a real focus. I think he's come into this market at a young age and as a young coach, and hasn't been able to deal. That's not an easy job. I think he's got a bright mind. I think he's open to change. I think he's strong in his beliefs, but he also doesn't think he's got all the answers. And one of the things we talked about is I firmly believe we're all sometimes better in our second jobs. You see it with coaches. Maybe I think there's a little bit of that, you know. I've talked to you guys about my relationship with Kyle, and he's worked with Kyle a long time. But sometimes I think I can, sometimes a little bit of new, a little bit of fresh can help, a little bit of change. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I came away from there. And like it was, we probably met for 17 hours over 4 or 5 days. He's probably about the third day, he's like, maybe I don't want to stick around with this guy. And so once I didn't chase him out of there, I thought, well, maybe I'd stick around. But no, I came out of there going, this is a real bright guy.
Brad, where do things stand with your open assistant job?
We're in the process of evaluating everything else. I mean, and like I said, Chris, I said earlier, it's not always perfect. When the manager comes in 3 weeks before the draft and there's a whole bunch of things to do, dealt with Sheldon, evaluating the staff now, how it all fits. We've got an open position, evaluating everything else. So we're working on it. It's a long way to say we're working on it.
Brad, have you extended Sheldon through this decision, or is the contract remain?
No, you're a late arrival, Pierre. We just addressed it. We'll deal with that. It's on the to-do list to look at.
When you say 17 hours, is it you two just sitting across in chairs staring at each other? Do you golf? What
Yeah,
do you do?
it was just meeting. It's a lot of it. Like, to me, there's three buckets to it. It's you got to develop a relationship. Right? So there's a getting to know you part, and then there's, then you dig into a little bit philosophical and the team and the players and where he sees it going, and then obviously there's a strategical part, and you start going through some video and how do you like such, how do you play, there might be a little change in how we play, but how does he see the game, and a little bit more of the bricks and mortars and defensive zone cover, all those types of things that you have to go through. So there's a step and stage that you have to grind through it.
Have the restrictions been lifted by Calgary
I appreciate Calgary. Brendan's been dealing with that. I have not been dealing with anything draft related. I will be, as we stand here today, I will be at the table once Calgary has made their selection. So I think Calgary selects 16. I'll be at the table at shortly thereafter.
How was the visit with Austin in Arizona? What'd you come away with?
Less humid than Nashville. No, it was good. I had a good chance to visit with him, and you know that relationship and that dialogue continued. But certainly got down there and spent a few days with him, and have been, you know, we all know the files that are open, so we continue to work away with it. excuse me, work away at it. But it was really good to spend some time with him.
Were any assurances made to the core? I mean, so you can't. John has a total no, but were there any assurances made before July 1st about the core group remaining together?
Oh, I don't think there's ever any assurances in this business. You know, we've got really. I said it before. We got really good players. We've got two who's got a year left in their contract that we'd like to re-sign. We're engaged in that, and you just keep working away at it.
How confident are you that you're going to get Austin and Willie?
I'm always confident until proven otherwise. I'm a positive by nature. Yeah, the dialogue's been good, and you keep working away at it. And I know, listen, there's lots of interest in it. I get it. I tend to, not tend to, I will never have public discourse on contracts. But we're working away at it, and hopefully we get to a good conclusion.
Where are you at with your first round pick in terms of picking?
28, we pick it at 28. You know what? We've as good teams do, and this team's been a good team for the last little bit. You move draft capital when you're trying to win. So we've moved some draft capital over the last few years. It would have to make a lot of sense to move the pick. Now, you know, I don't think we're flush with bullets to move up. So that you're probably, when you're handicapping it, picking or potentially moving down. If there's something that makes sense to move the pick, we would. But you got to, at some points, you got to put some groceries back in the cupboards, and so I think there's a fairly good bet we're picking at 28.
From the
How do you
organization.
balance, Brad, the fact that this week and next week are really fertile time period for trades, and the cap gets used up for a lot of teams, so you don't have forever to decide to act or not. How do you balance that with wanting to extend a guy like Nylander, but also knowing that there's probably a bit of urgency to it?
Yeah, it's like anything else, and I would say this, and it's hard to remove, you know, the individual. I'll say this, and everybody will tie it back to Willie, but it's not really that. You work the process, right? So, you know, in any scenario, you can't make it if there's nothing out there to make your team better, then it doesn't make sense to make a trade. Just to stand up and say, "Hurrah, I made a trade." So, our focus, you know, with that. When you talk about Willie, our focus is strictly to get him signed. You're always talking to people. I mean, that's the job. The job of the manager is to make sure you know, A, what's going on in the league, and B, is there avenues to make your team better, regardless of who it is. So priority, sign the player. Always have an ear open of is there opportunities to make your team better, and sometimes the timing, you know, doesn't match up, but you know, that's the process you can do. You can't do something that you can't manufacture it if it's not there either.
How different of a GM are you after going through what you went through with Johnny and sort of similar situation contract-wise?
Well, I think we all learn from experiences, right? And Johnny's, I know, you know, there's things that you would never, you're not going to comment on. There's some stuff, you know, that happens in those situations that lends themselves to, you know, to the end result. But at the end of the day, you learn from everything. You always, you know, every experience you have, any walk of life, any job, you think you're wiser. You know, you maybe avoid some potholes that you stepped in prior. So you're better for the experience.
Are there any other restrictions you faced with the draft? Like, have you been in draft meetings?
I haven't been in any draft meetings, no. I really, it's just been not involved in the draft until really today, or up until today, until getting clarification on the table.
What's the plan for Matt Murray?
Excuse me?
What's the plan for Matt Murray?
Well, I mean, Matt Murray's a good goalie. He's I think we'd all agree he's probably the biggest challenge has been availability, right, in terms of injuries. I look at it right now, we've got 3 good goaltenders. really good goaltenders. And, you know, you got Joe, the young guy who's, you know, he finished off well. I've learned sometimes just let those young guys, sometimes the finish off well doesn't necessarily mean the start's going to be well, right? So let's just let them, you know, we got 3 good goalies. It's a position we've got good depth in. Like anything else, we'd be open to looking at different things. But if at the end of the day we go to camp and we got 3 good goalies, good for us, is how I look at it.
What surprised you most about this job?
Surprised me most about the job. You know what? It's just been a lot. It's been busy day. Like it hasn't been. Like it's been pretty much Groundhog Day. It's up early. It's go to the office and like it's been drinking out of a fire hose right now. I think not so much just because of the market or it's the timing, right? The timing and the files we got to deal with. It's been cool. I'm living in a place. I got a fat bastard burrito down there that's pretty cool to eat, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I have a couple of those and get up and get after it the next day. So it's been pretty cool.
You might not pay for another one all year now.
Yeah, there you go.
From the organization's perspective, how important is it to get clarity on Matthews and Nylander, like on July 1st? It's close to.
You know what, Chris? It's I mean, it's always good. The sooner the better, right? I mean, the idea is when you know where things are at, you can plan better, right? When you know if it's going to be raining tomorrow, you maybe, pack a jacket. So having clarity always helps. Is it the be all end all? No. I mean, and you've got 2 sides that have got to play a piece in this puzzle. So we certainly would like that. We're certainly trying to work towards that. If it happens or not. I'm also not, July 1, the world doesn't stop. I feel very confident. Like I said to the earlier question, I'm confident we're going to get both players signed until proven otherwise, and hopefully it's July. If it's not, then we'll keep working away at it.
What are you going to prioritize in the UFA market?
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of UFAs. To me, it's a little bit of let's see what happens in the next couple of days. I mean, we've got a lot of. I mean, it's a unique situation. We've talked about Austin and Willie, and although they're not free agents this year, it goes into next year planning and all those sorts of things. So we've got some players who are UFAs this year. Let's see where that goes to, what we can or can't get done, what players, where we can fit it all in, and then we'll probably have a better idea come July 1.
Generally speaking, what do you make of the UFA class? I mean, it used to be there's a lot of big names. This year, it seems like the big dates in the league are kind of not as big anymore. Trade deadline July 1st.
Yeah, I mean, it's a function of everything. Again, we've been at a minimal growth cap. Everything's squeezed. Everything's tight. You see more players extending for a longer period of time. There's less availability of players. I would just classify the market as there's some good players. And there's more. There's quantity. There's a lot of players, and again, you don't know. We've got a number of UFAs. Are those players going to be signed between now and when is free agency? 3 days? 3 days from now? 4 days? Saturday? It could change, right? So we'll probably know better in the next couple of days. But there'll be good players out there.
Have you had your first phone call yet with Craig Conroy as general managers and gotten into any sort of discussions and negotiations, and what might that be like?
Oh, I've talked to Connie a lot. Yeah, he's a good man. He's going through it. Like he's. I always say there's a difference between the co-pilot chair and the pilot chair, right? Landing the plane is different than the guy cheering you on to do it. So he's doing good. Yeah, we've had some discussions, and he, like us, has lots on his to-do list.
Is it a disadvantage for you at all because he knows your every thought about all of the players that he could be talking to you about? I mean, he knows everything you're thinking about these guys.
Well, I think he knows what I think of those players. We've had those discussions a lot. But it's there's movement around the league, right? I don't think it's too unique to this. Whether it be managers move or assistant managers move or coaches move, wherever you've been, you've got feelings on players. But his feelings, my feelings, or it's like anybody else. Everybody's got their own feelings, but he's got a lot of good players over there.
You added Shane Doan. Are you foreseeing any other additions to your staff?
You know what? Yeah, Donor's been a really good addition, and has dug right in. In all honesty, what I've said with staffing is, with everything that's been prioritized till July 1, we'll deal with that after. So what I have learned in the short time that I've been here, there's lots of really good people, and we've been utilizing everyone. We'll cross that bridge once we get through the next couple of weeks.
What are you looking to prioritize with the 28th pick here?
If it stays there, the best player available. I think we've done a really good job over the last 12 months to identify certain people and certain traits that we highly value. See how it goes tomorrow night.
What are some of those traits?
Intelligence, competitiveness. I'd love all of them to be able to check all the boxes, but those would be the two main priorities for sure.
How do you characterize this draft, especially deeper into the draft?
It's pretty deep up top. I think like any other draft, it levels out. But up top, I think it's pretty special. And yeah, once you get outside the 15, I think it's a fall off.
What sort of stress does it put on you that there's only 3 picks?
Yeah, it's out of your control. You can only control what's ahead of you, right? So we do what we can to execute and stick to our process and try to take the best player available.
You draw on the past experience, I think, is kind of a similar situation last year where you had a pick, and if you get more picks with that pick, then you're able to adjust. And
Yeah, I think obviously trading down when you're pretty bare seems like the most sensible move at the time. We'll see how it shakes out again tomorrow in terms of who we've identified. Looking forward to it.
You had board meetings with a large handful of players in Toronto after the combine. What were you hoping to gain from that?
Always searching for information. Player development, video analysis, they play a massive role in our decision-making process. My job is just to marry it to the best of my ability.
Different scenario where your GM isn't necessarily available to bounce your stuff off of and such. How does that change things?
Nothing has changed, to be honest. I mean, like I said, we have a process that we put in place. We believe in it. We trust it. And we try to execute it. And everything else is out of our control.
Do the priorities shift at all?
No, because Tree hasn't had any involvement to this date. So, again, we stick to our principles and we attack it.
Is there one positional need you've identified more than others?
No, best player available.
You've worked with Kyle for a long time. What was your reaction when he was let go?
I think it's the business. And we all know what we signed up for. I think he landed in a pretty good spot. He's doing okay. So, obviously, we have a job to do and obviously wish him the best. Have a long relationship with him, but we're good.
Matthew Nyes went from a second-round pick to a playoff performer in just 2 years. Does his kind of quick adaptation change the way you look at prospects?
No, everybody's different, everyone in their own right. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just luck and randomness that you get lucky and somebody accelerates their development and ready to step in right away. Others may take a little longer. We're trying to take the best player available, not today or tomorrow. We're looking at the long run. So,
When you say intelligence, like what does that look like?
all of the above. I mean, we're looking for players that influence winning hockey. So, awareness, ability to process, guys that understand that there's other things that influence winning.